Miami Dolphins fans rightfully have an eye on quarterback dollars as the team looks to secure and sign a contract extension with Tua Tagovailoa. But what does the quarterback market look like? And what are some important things to remember? We are looking at that here today on Locked On Dolphins.
You are Locked On Dolphins, your daily Miami Dolphins podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Miami, welcome to another episode of Locked On Dolphins. It is your team every day here on the Locked On Network. I'm your host, Kyle Krabs, a lifelong Miami Dolphins fan, host of Locked On Dolphins, co-host of Locked On NFL Scouting. You can find our shows on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast because it is your team every day. We don't just say it, we live it here on the Locked On Network. Today's episode of Locked On Dolphins is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 with any winning $5 bet. So visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. You can also find me over on Substack at Touchdown Miami. And there's been a lot of quarterback contract content that's been pumped out over the course of the past week. Two long-form stories, one about why if now is the right time for the Dolphins to commit to a quarterback contract extension for Tua Tagovailoa. And a lot of Dolphins fans have questions about, is it just better to let him play the fifth-year option, and then you can always franchise tag him if you can't come to an agreement before the start of next offseason? And I think anybody who has questions about Tua Tagovailoa, you guys are well within your right to have questions as a fan of the team about the ceiling for this franchise because the big breakthrough hasn't happened yet, right? But what I can tell you is this team is intent and invested in getting a contract extension done with Tua Tagovailoa, and they don't care what you or I or anybody else think. They internally, in-house, believe very much that this is a player that they can win with. So that's why the content for me hasn't necessarily been should they not. It doesn't matter. They're going to, and they're in the process of making this happen. And instead, the focus is, what does it mean? Why is now the right time if they do it now? And what does the market dictate to us about what this is going to look like and how the Dolphins can structure their contract extension? And I think any contract extension at any position, and it's more challenging at the quarterback position because there's more dollars that are invested naturally, right? But any contract, whether it is Tua Tagovailoa's would-be contract extension, whether it is Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert's contract extensions, or Jalen Hurts' contract extension, or Lamar Jackson's contract extension, all of those happened last summer. Or whether it's Kirk Cousins signing in free agency, or it's at a different position, Bradley Chubb signing an extension. The team, the player wants to maximize their value. And the team wants to find the right amount of investment to have the player agree to terms while preserving as much protection for themselves as possible. And it doesn't always, negotiations don't always work that way. The Cleveland Browns were so thirsty to get a quarterback that they gave Deshaun Watson the league's first fully guaranteed contract for a mega contract at the quarterback position. It's not looking great. So that's not to say you have to protect yourself, with air quotes, with any contract extension that you do. But I think you reflect on the way that Teron Armstead's contract was structured, the way that Bradley Chubb's contract was structured. The Dolphins with bigger contracts seem to have coveted that long-term flexibility within the contract while knowing that there is a big investment that's required. That gets more complicated with a quarterback because the big-time investment is not a modest big-time investment. It's, these days, a supersized big-time investment. So what I wanted to do today was look at the market and also provide kind of some context clues as far as if a contract extension is announced in any near future for the Dolphins and Tua Tagovailoa, It's not just the annual average salary. That's what everybody loves to report on. It's what agents love to get the insiders to report on, because you can structure that however you need to make it sound really great for your client and, by extension, you as an agent. So, example, Joe Burrow, an annual average salary of $55 million on a 5-year, $275 million contract extension is considered the premier contract in the NFL and the premier quarterback contract. But Joe Burrow signed that contract extension with 2 years remaining on his rookie contract. So it's technically a 7-year contract and not a 5-year contract. And when you end up divvying up the 2 years and the cash that he was owed on his rookie contract, plus the $275 million across 7 seasons instead of across 5 seasons, then now that's the new money, is the 5 for 275. But that is not in reality what was signed. Joe Burrow, in reality, ended up signing $309 million over 7 seasons. That annual average is 44 and a quarter. And not all of that's guaranteed, obviously. Now, there's significant guaranteed at signing, and there's significant practical guarantees. Those are all important things to know and understand for a quarterback contract. Take Justin Herbert, right? Justin Herbert signed his a month and a half before Joe Burrow signed. Joe Burrow signed his contract extension in September of last year, and it was right before the start of the season. Justin Herbert signed his at the end of July, just before the start of training camp. As the saying goes, deadline spur action, right? So if there's any questions right now about, well, we've heard they want to get a contract extension done with Tua, but it's not done yet, what's the deal with that? Jalen Hurts and Lamar Jackson were both done in early April before the draft, a deadline. And for Baltimore, knowing they were going to commit to Lamar Jackson. And then Justin Herbert, before he steps foot in the door for training camp, that's done. And then Joe Burrow, before the start of the NFL season, that's done, right? So I think your next deadline is probably 2 months away, a month and a half, 2 months, 2.5 months. I'm going to do the math live on the show. It's never good. Training camp, I would be inclined to believe, is the next significant deadline. So I don't read into this not being done at this point in time. But Justin Herbert, to go back to the original point, he signed his at the end of July. And he signed a 5-year contract worth a grand total of $262.5 million for $52.5 million per season. But again, he had 2 years remaining on the end of his rookie contract. So it's technically now 7 years under contract. And while the new money was $262.5 million, he had 2 years worth of rookie control left on that contract. It was a grand total of $296.24 million over 7 seasons. That true annual average salary is $42.32 million per season. So you'll hear 55, you'll hear 52, you'll hear whatever is referred to if and when Tua Tagovailoa does end up signing his contract extension, but he has 1 year left on his deal. So he's already owed $23 million this season. So that changes the annual average. Now, there's some risk that you've seen, and this is one of the points that was made in talking about why you would want to get a quarterback contract extension done now if you're the Dolphins, or this offseason if you're the Dolphins. And one of the other big figures in these quarterback contracts is the signing bonus. When you look across the league in the quarterback contracts with the biggest signing bonuses, the two biggest signing bonuses for active NFL contracts that were given out were both given out to quarterbacks that were on the franchise tag. And that's the answer to your question of, well, if you're the Dolphins, why wouldn't you just let Tua play this year out and then put him on the franchise tag if you can't come to a contract extension, or if you decide that you want to move on? I don't think anything's going to happen in 2024 that's going to change their mind. And that's why this conversation is happening. Lamar Jackson got a $72.5 million signing bonus while tagged but not under contract. So his 5-year, $260 million contract that was an average of $52 million per season that he signed in April of last year, that was a true 5-year for $260. There were no pre-existing deals. There's pre-existing years. Pre-existing years. $72.5 million is $6.5 million more than the next highest signing bonus, which was Dak Prescott. And Dallas played the song and dance with Dak, where he played from 16, 17, 18, 19 on his rookie contract because he was a third-round pick. And then in 2020, he played on the franchise tag. And then in 2021, signed this 4-year, $160 million contract extension, but $66 million of that was given to a signing bonus. The largest signing bonus for any of the quarterbacks last year, Burrow, Herbert, or of the three that had existing years left on their deals, Joe Burrow had the biggest signing bonus, and it was $40 million. So if you wait until a player's on the franchise tag with the threat of not signing the tag or facilitating their way via trade, if they're not going to sign the tag, if you're not going to pay me long-term, I know everybody else will negotiate. We saw what that surcharge looked like with Christian Wilkins at defensive tackle. With a quarterback, it's a whole different ballgame. And if you think that just because you have questions about Tua or he's a scheme-specific player, that there wouldn't be some kind of market, go back and look at these past few quarterback draft classes. Go reconcile 6 going in the top 12 in this year's draft. These teams are hungry for quarterbacks. And Tua Tagovailoa, passer rating leader in 2022 and passing yards leader in 2023. Significant production. Now, is he a skill-specific player? Yes, I think he is a skill-specific player, and he's a scheme-specific player. But about 95% of quarterbacks in the league are. And that's where I think if the Dolphins, and you were to put yourself in the shoes of, we're just going to bite it out, you're going to cost yourself a lot of money up front. We'll get into some more measures of investment up next, and get into some more of the quarterback market and things to know and be aware of as we wait for a contract extension to get done. That's up next here on Locked On Dolphins. Stick with us. Passion, drive, and patience are not just the formula for winning championships. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof rack, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you are burning rubber and not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home the dub. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions do apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit available only to U.S. customers. The dollars do make you itch a little bit, right? It's like, holy cow. Lamar Jackson, 5 years, $260 million, $52 million per season. Joe Burrow, 5 years, $275 million, $55 million per season. Justin Herbert, $262.5 over 5 seasons. Jalen Hurts got $51.5. Now, Jalen Hurts, that contract's a whole different animal. And I think there's some inspirational elements there that I would want the Dolphins to invoke. And we kind of got into that a little bit when we did the offseason blueprint. We did the whole show about paying Tua, right? And I put together a contract extension, and I had done a lot of this looking at these contracts back then to kind of get an idea on how I would structure a contract offer for Tua that gave an agent a win in the way of how you could report the contract, whether that was new money in new years, whether that was cumulative, whether that was a 3-year guarantee, whether that was practical guaranteed at signing and guaranteed at signing, all that kind of stuff, right? There's all these little details and all these little different measurements of investment that if you can hand a party some wins in some of them, even if it's not all of them, you give yourself a better case to pitch the contract offer that you are making on being one that a player would want to sign, because the agents are going to get the opportunity to have their PR win with a big contract. So guaranteed at signing is another big one. And that is when you put pen to paper at first, when you first sign the contract, what do you know is automatically going into your pocket? The ultimate win of wins here went to Deshaun Watson because Deshaun Watson got a 100% fully guaranteed 5-year, $230 million contract. Unprecedented contract. And what the Browns have had to do as a result is they have had to do max restructures on that contract annually, and it's only made that contract look uglier and scarier because there's no outs of that contract. That goes back to that idea that when you sign a big investment and a big contract, where are your exit ramps? How do you have the opportunity to offload? Well, for the Browns, it was, well, you ride it out, and then if you have to move on from Deshaun Watson, you hope you can get a party that would trade for him. But you're trying to trade a player that has a contract that's fully guaranteed, so they don't have any outs. They don't have restructure ability. They don't have the ability to bring a player in on a 1-year rental and then say, oh, there's no more guaranteed money, so we can cut the player and move on if it doesn't work. It's a fully guaranteed $230 million contract. So that was the ultimate win of wins for an individual player in the quarterback market, was getting a 100% fully guaranteed contract. And the worry was, is that going to follow suit for all other quarterback contracts to come? Well, we had the Hurts, the Herbert, the Jackson, the Burrow, and they did not get 100% fully guaranteed contracts. Now, they did have sizable investments. Joe Burrow had $146.5 million in fully guaranteed money at signing. Out of the $275 million. So a little more than half. Most of the time you get 50 to 60% of the total value of the contract is guaranteed in some capacity. And guaranteed at signing just makes it very black and white. Lamar Jackson, of the $260 million that he got, $135 million of that was guaranteed at signing. That's the third highest total in the league. And for Lamar, that's, I think, when you look at how Baltimore chose to protect themselves. Lamar Jackson got $80 million in cash last year. He got the $72.5 million signing bonus plus a $7.5 million salary, which was your week-to-week checks. So $80 million guaranteed of his 135 got paid upfront in the first year. So if Lamar Jackson were to kind of re-experience some of the injuries that he dealt with at the end of his rookie contract that kind of prompted Baltimore to have him facing the franchise tag in the first place, Baltimore does not have that long of a commitment left from a cash owed, guaranteed cash owed, where it makes it a more attractive pivot for somebody else to kick the tires on if they had to in 2 years. Justin Herbert got $133.7 million in guaranteed at signing. Jalen Hurts got $110 million in guaranteed at signing. The only other two quarterbacks to have $100+ million in guaranteed at signing includes Kyler Murray, who signed his in 2022, and the oldest contract on this list of $100 million plus guaranteed at signing is Josh Allen with $100 million, just over $100 million, and that was a 6-year deal signed in 2021. And man, that Josh Allen deal is aging gracefully. I know the Patrick Mahomes deal, and he signed the 10-year, $450 million contract back in 2020, aging gracefully in its own right as well. They've already had to start adjusting and addressing that contract. I know last year they took some money from the back end as a backloaded contract, and they started pushing it forward into current years to kind of give him more cash up front without totally adjusting the value of the contract. But would not be surprised to see that one kind of readdressed here in the next couple of years, especially if the Chiefs keep winning as many games as they are. So that's guaranteed at signing. It's a big measurement. So maybe your AAV is lower, but your guaranteed at signing is higher, and it's a higher percentage. If you can prop a contract offer up against that list of 230 in guaranteed at signing, which you won't touch, 146.5, which you probably won't touch, but anything after that, you've got an $11.5 million dip. Can you park a contract offer third on that list, but maybe the AAV is a little bit lower than some of the recent market resets? These are the kinds of questions that I'm asking myself as I try to wrap my head around what this is going to look like. And I'm sure it's the kinds of questions that the two parties going back and forth are discussing. A lot to iron out in that regard. The other one is the 3-year cash. Most contracts, because the guarantees sit at the front of the contract. How much cash do you get delivered in the first 3 years of the deal? Beyond that, most of the time, your guaranteed money is either completely exhausted or almost completely exhausted. And for players who maybe have a history of injuries, it's nice to get the money up front. And I don't think it's a coincidence that Lamar Jackson's 3-year cash, and again, $80 million of that came in the first year of the contract with him sitting on a franchise tag, needing a contract extension, which is maybe why the biggest advocate for not doing that, because Dak Prescott's disproportionately ranked higher on this list too, as another player that in 2021 was listed, even after signing that contract in 2021, he's still 6th in the 3-year cash total. After this massive influx in the salary cap from then to now, and these contracts that have got done the last 2 years. Lamar Jackson, $156 million in the first 3 years, is the highest in the league by $9.5 million in front of Joe Burrow. Deshaun Watson's about $9.5 million behind that at 137. And then Kirk Cousins this year, his free agent contract, 135 in the first 3 years of a 4-year, $180 million contract. So I think that's the fresh reminder too for Kirk Cousins as an older player coming off an Achilles tear, still getting 4 years, $180 million. The AAV is quote unquote only 45. But the signing bonus, he got a $50 million signing bonus. That is out of the entirety of the league. Filter, reset. Thank you. That's tied for the 4th highest signing bonus of any quarterback in the league. In front of what Deshaun Watson and Joe Burrow and Daniel Jones and all these other quarterbacks got. Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield with his 3-year contract that he signed this year, and Derek Carr last year. Most of those are around 30, 28. Joe Burrow got 40. Watson got 44.9. Kirk Cousins this year, open market. And again, that's the game that you play if you don't get this extension done this year. And then there's also, again, the element of you have an extra 1 year remaining on a contract. So if you sign a 4 or 5 year deal, you have the 5th or 6th year of like, you can still tuck cash into this final year of the pre-existing contract. So the true average value of the contract goes down, even if it's only reported on the new money. So the reporters feel good, or so the agents feel good about what gets reported in the open space. So that's how the timing impacts Miami a little bit. And we're going to continue to talk about that here as we bring this episode of Locked On Dolphins to a close. So make sure that you stick with us. It is winner take all time in the NBA and NHL. And how about those cats, those cardiac cats? Florida Panthers, big comeback last night against the Boston Bruins, down 2-0 at the end of the first period. They moved to up 3-1 in the series against Boston in the NHL playoffs. Make sure you shoot your shot and bring home a big win of your own with FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count with FanDuel, America's number one sportsbook. So that in a nutshell is why I think this is the right time. If the team is committed to getting a contract extension done. And again, if you're a fan who's apprehensive or still feels like there's questions, or what is the late season ceiling of him as a player? What is the playoff success chances with this franchise if they continue on the path that they're currently committed on? You have every right to ask those questions. I think there's some reasonable weight to some of those questions. I also am totally understanding of why the Dolphins are committed to doing this. And if you're going to do it, then do it. Get it done. And you can use that as the foundation of which how you structure the rest of your roster and try to continue to pursue players that complement and serve as force multipliers to the strengths of the quarterback that you have. You have to tailor your offense and tailor your team to the strengths of your players. They have done that. And again, if you want to know, well, what's the ceiling of that? They didn't win a playoff game last year. Okay, I get it. Don't blow a 14-point lead in the last 3 minutes against 13-point lead against the Titans in the final 3 minutes, and you on Monday Night Football, and you'd have a home playoff game if played the Pittsburgh Steelers. But you know what? I have a feeling if you went 12-5 and you won the AFC East and you beat the Pittsburgh Steelers at home, and then you went to Kansas City the following week and you lost by 17 points on the road in the divisional round of the playoffs, every single question that everybody has about, well, they didn't win a playoff game, they still won a playoff game, they don't want a playoff, you guys would solve those questions, right? And be like, oh, what's the ceiling? Oh, they've been in an AFC championship game since 1992, 1993. Oh, they can't beat the good teams. They went 1-6 against good teams. Pittsburgh won a good team. They did play in the wild card round. All the same questions they'd still exist, just through a different lens, because there's still the apprehension about the player and the apprehension about the direction of the team. And I can only hope to, on this platform, talk about what happens and then why it happens and why the decisions are made and what the implications are of the decisions, and explore it through that lens. I have my own thoughts, but you're entitled to yours, and I can't tell you how to feel. But between the annual average salary, which I think is going to come in with some sticker shock for Miami fans, I think and that's with the new money. But again, I think you have a 1 year remaining on that current contract. Now, if you compare that to Burrow and Herbert and Hurts, well, not Jalen Hurts, Burrow and Herbert signing their contract extensions with 2 years remaining, maybe the true AAV, even if the actual new money AAV is lower than those guys signed for, maybe the true AAV of that contract would be higher. And maybe that's the way that you present the numbers when the contract extension gets done. Or maybe there's more upfront money. Maybe it's a higher than average signing bonus. I would be a proponent of that because you can obviously prorate that out across 5 years. That used to be a really big thing for life of contracts, but void years has kind of changed the game in that regard. I'm sure for Tua, the 3 year cash flow would be a really attractive thing as well. Maybe we don't care so much about the dummy years on the back end, like the Tyreek Hill contract. When he signed his Tyreek Hill contract extension in Miami and got the new dollars, they put the 55 or 60, whatever it is, base salary that's owed in 2026. And everybody knows you're not going to touch that money. You're either going to get a new contract extension or you're going to be traded or cut or moved on from and whatever by that time. So backloading with dollars that you know you're not really going to sniff, like fart in your hand and throw it in the air. Who cares? Sorry. So anyway, those are some scopes to be mindful of as we wait for a contract extension to get done. Because I'm sure there will be some reported wins in some of those areas. But when you get the full terms of the contract, I kind of have the feeling you're going to see some compromises along the way. And this is not just going to be a blanket across the board. Wow, they set the bar and everything. Or wow, they're top 3 in the bar on the bar and everything. Because this is not, there's not the playoff hardware to show. And unfortunately, when you take a rookie quarterback and you intend to contend with a rookie quarterback on a rookie contract, and you flush the first 2 years of that rookie contract down the toilet because of offensive ineptitude of almost unparalleled degrees. Shout out to Jets for keeping the bar lower than what Miami had in 2020 and 2021. What ends up happening is now you have to make this challenging decision in the midst of, well, year 3 in the system might be a really big year, might be a really big clarity year as far as, is there another level to tap into? The team thinks there is, and that's why they're getting ready to make this decision and are having these discussions. So some things to keep in the back of your mind as we wait, as everyone waits. And you won't have to wait, hopefully, as long. Who knows? Maybe the contract extension will come out today now that I'm doing the show. But you won't have to wait too long for your next episode of Locked On Dolphins. You can find us on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. I appreciate you guys for checking out the show. Make it a great rest of your day. I am out of here. Fins up.